I wouldn't disagree with, I guess, the report that kind of puts that up as the gold standard for forensic evidence.
Right, and
I mean, I think it's extremely reliable. You know, the only caveat is it has to be performed by somebody that knows what they're doing and and the testing done properly. But I mean, I don't think you can argue with the results if
right.
that's done.
Well, the reason I asked for many reasons, but recently there was an article that was released, I think it was in Nature, that said or described the differences among mitochondrial DNA in various tissues of a single individual. So as we grow from a single cell into the adult humans that we are, there are mutations that accumulate in mitochondrial DNA. And so if you actually took a sample of blood and compared it to, say, a swab sample from the cheek, the DNA sequences might actually vary. Are you familiar with this? Have you heard about this?
Nah, I hadn't heard about that.
Okay, this is really recent data, and I'm not sure if that's getting out to the defense or even the prosecutorial community, but do you have science advisors? Do attorneys call on scientists regularly? Are they updated on science regularly?
Updated, probably not at all. I mean, I say not at all. I mean, there's more seminars and training that have started coming about the last several years. But I mean, as far as people you rely on, I can't speak for everybody, but I mean, I think by and large, most lawyers go consult with somebody they have some faith in whenever they're being asked to evaluate something like that.
Okay, and well, I'm going to change a little bit again to talk about the Texas Forensic Science Commission. I'm sure you're familiar with how the controversy surrounding this commission, and some argue that Governor Perry is playing politics with the commission to preserve his candidacy for governor. And I don't know if you can get political, but what is your take on the governor's action recently postponing the meetings and mixing up the commission?
Well, I mean, I don't really think there's much doubt that it was political.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime you have a politically appointed commission, everything they do is just by definition going to be political.
Right.
But I mean, as far as postponing the meeting, the way he did it, when he did it, as well as the prior contacts he had with the chairman, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody that looks at it doesn't think he had some ulterior motivation behind that.
Right. And in regards to the commission, I know that I think it was Craig Byler has his report to present to the committee. In light of that, and in light of the article written by David Gran in the New Yorker, do you think that Texas could be the first state to acknowledge that it has officially executed a legally or factually innocent person?
Will they ever acknowledge it?
Do you think that report might force them to acknowledge Willingham's execution as what?
No, I think it's pretty clear they're never going to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Unless you get a different governor.
Right.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear the current governor doesn't have any problems with anything. He's never going to acknowledge that, and I have a hard time believing that the forensic commission, as led by the current chairman, would ever acknowledge that.
Right.
My personal guess is that they're just going to put that behind them and say it's an old case and we don't need to worry about it. Let's move on to stuff that we could have some impact on in the future.
Yeah, that's a little upsetting to me. I've read the evidence, I've seen the evidence for the Willingham case, and I lean very strongly that he was innocent. One of the things that bothers me is that the report was sent to the Board of Paroles and Pardons, and as far as I know, there's no acknowledgement in their notes of the report. And my question from that is, do you think it would be a good policy recommendation to require that at least one board member have an advanced scientific degree? My research is that no one on the committee or on the board has a degree, a science-related degree above a BS.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't think it would hurt. I don't know how much difference that's going to make. I mean, historically, the board has never really done much of an independent investigation and inquiry into things. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have somebody with, especially when you have issues like that, somebody that's got some scientific expertise to look at stuff and at least slow it down so everybody else can look at it.
Right. Yeah, I think my personal opinion is that if there was someone who had a scientific background that could be specifically involved in this type of case, they would be very important in influencing the board and how they proceeded in making these decisions.
I would certainly hope so.
Well, do you have any policy recommendations for the forensic science community, or things that you think would make the science more usable for you or more reliable?
I think the big question is reliability. I don't know that I've got specific suggestions. I mean, we're kind of coming up with some legislative items to work on, and one is that we actually have a way to get these cases involving bad science where people have been convicted into court. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an issue. But of course, the problem is that the scientific community is, by and large, the true scientific community. I think there's not that much of a problem with. It's these fringe things like fingerprints, and I've got a case up out of Tarrant County involving blood spatter. Mm. Those just are, those aren't so much scientific as they are subjective. I think that's kind of where the focus has to be. I mean, if you're dealing in science, the whole idea is you come up with a hypothesis and you try to prove it wrong, and if you can't prove it wrong, then it's right. Mm-hmm. Generally on true science, there's not a lot of disagreement about. Just in my own mind, if you've got an issue like say like say fingerprints, or I take blood spatter, I guess, because it's one of the more subjective things. I mean, if you've got 5 different supposed scientific experts and they all have different interpretations and different opinions, I don't even think that qualifies as science. It qualifies as opinion. Right.
Well, yeah, you could extend that to the broader community. I mean, for instance, if you just look at the Texas Board of Education and how they approach teaching of evolution, they feel like if there is an alternative opinion to evolution, that they have a right to teach that in classes. And I think in regards to what you're saying, is we have to be able to tease out what is actually the science and what is opinion-based evidence. So, I think even among 5 experts, probably one of them has the true scientific approach that should be followed. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, this has been excellent. I have one more question that was asked specifically by a fellow from SEA.